Welcome, bienvenue, Bindigin. Hello everyone, my name is Cassandra Reese and I am the recruitment intern for the Indigenous portfolio here at the University of Sudbury. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that we are located on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabeg Nation, specifically the territories of the Atikamekw, Anishinaabeg, and the Wampate First Nation. We are also in the heart of the Robinson-Huron Treaty of 1850 territory. Thank you all for taking the time to join us for our first discussion as part of the new graduate panel discussion series. Today's topic is landing that job, what I need to know before I graduate. We've invited 4 alumni here today to share their knowledge with you. Each will take a few minutes to talk about their experience during their undergrad, what they found helpful in preparing them for what comes after graduation, what they wish they would have known then, and what they have learned since entering the workforce. Once all the panelists have had the opportunity to share, we will open up the floor for discussion and questions. Our hope for today is that you leave here with the tools and ideas to help you best prepare for what comes after graduation and to help you land that job that you've always wanted. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our 4 panelists. So first of all, we have Nia Burke. She is currently a second-year master's student in Indigenous Relations program at Laurentian University. She completed a Bachelor of Arts with honors with a major in Indigenous Studies from the University of Sudbury. She is originally from Fort Colomb, Quebec, sorry, with relations coming from the Kitigan, Zibi, and Anishinaabe. While in her undergrad, she kept very busy as she held many positions within the Laurentian University community, including a voting seat on the Board of Governors, Senate, and Présidente de l'Association des étudiantes et étudiants francophones, student seat on the Sexual Violence Policy Working Group, and many more. Nia has also worked as a workshop facilitator for the University of Sudbury for 2 years, traveling throughout the province to promote the Indigenous Studies program in French high schools, while also giving teachings and informative workshops on the Indigenous culture. Her involvement within the University of Sudbury granted her the honor of receiving the Heart of U of S Award in 2014. She is currently working as Indigenous Resource Coordinator with l'Association des étudiantes et étudiants francophones. This position allows her to help Indigenous Francophone students coordinating different local and on-campus services while also facilitating workshops. Welcome. All right, second, we have Lisa Canales. She is a former resident of University of Sudbury residence, formerly known as Lucien Mac residence, during her undergrad degree. Originally from Timmins, Ontario, but has since made Sudbury her home. She is the manager, special events coordinator, and senior strength and conditioning coach at the Sudbury School of Fitness, which is also home to CrossFit Sudbury. Lisa is a senior sectional level judge for figure skating with Skate Canada. You can often find her throughout the skating season, hanging out at the arenas around the province. When she is not busy judging or organizing activities and events for the gym community, you can find her at home, reading and learning all things health, wellness, nutrition, and fitness, as well as hanging out with her little Pomeranian pup, Sammy. She is also an avid crafter. As a Laurentian University alumni, she received a Honors Bachelor of Arts in Psychology, as well as Honors Bachelor of Arts in Sociology. She later then completed her master's in applied social research, with her research focusing on social construction of pro-anorexia and pro-bulimia and social movement theories. Welcome. Third, we have Jacinthe. So originally from Wyerton, Ontario, Jacinthe Lalty is currently in her professional year of the Concurrent education program. She graduated in May 2018 with a Bachelor of Arts with honors in music and a minor in littérature française. Her 4 years at Laurentian University were packed with growing and inspirational moments, as well as meeting some very influential people, both among her peers and within the university community. Jacinthe was the president of the student-run group that she also named the Laurentian University Music Association, as well as a former student representative for both the music department and English education department. She is also a member of the Bachelor of Education Student Association, where she held the secretary position in the year 2016 and 2017. She is now currently a pro-year rep for her section of JI2 and is looking forward to teaching in North London, England this coming September. And finally, we have Josh Wong. So working within an Indigenous agency mandated by the province of Ontario, Josh Wong is also a small business owner and a lifelong student. He is employed in the field of child welfare as an alternative care recruiter, engaging with foster parents, Anishinaabe families, and children at the Nottawindaman Family and Community Services. He has recently started driving for U-Ride in Sudbury, similar to Uber, and is aiding the growing rideshare business in the north. Originally from Moosonee, Josh moved to Sudbury to begin his academic career in 2009. In 2011, he graduated with honors from Cambrian College and transferred to Laurentian University to study law and Indigenous studies. In 2014, he was awarded the Sword of Loyola at the University of Sudbury, which is the most prestigious award for his outstanding example of concern for others and generous contribution to society. In the winter months, he assists with a warm winter clothing and blanket distribution program. So now I turn the floor over to our first panelist.
Oh, it's working. Okay, so should introduce myself, but I thought I would just introduce myself again. So I'm doing a Master's in Indigenous Relations. My name is Nia Burke. I'm originally from Fort College, Quebec, which is a small town on the Ottawa River. So I began at Laurentian in 2013 with my program being in theater in French. I ended up taking an Indigenous Studies class, Brock Pitawanakwet, just by fluke, and it was the most amazing class I ever had. It was amazing having a prof who understood me and understood my style of learning. So the next semester I changed my program completely from theater and changed into Indigenous Studies. So after that experience with Brock, I really wanted to do everything I could to get involved with the U of S community. So currently, I work with l'Association des étudiants et étudiantes francophones as their Indigenous resource person. We recognized this position was important as there was a lack of services in for Indigenous Francophone students on campus. So I help with ceremonial needs, campaigns, I direct students to appropriate services, and I facilitate workshops. I recently created a resource binder for our office. Northern schools across the province have requested this binder once it's completed. So I think what has benefited me the most to prepare me for graduation is how my profs on this campus were understanding that sometimes learning experiences and opportunities don't always take place in the classroom. My professors were understanding that I sat on Laurentian Board of Governors, Senate, Student Appeals, Sexual Violence Policy Committees, Status of Women Committee, Food Services, and all these components on campus that desperately need student representation, especially Indigenous representation. U of S, like she mentioned, U of S had also given me the opportunity to do promotion of the Indigenous Studies program in French across the province. So I gave teachings to students across the province for 2 years, and it was one of the most amazing opportunities. We got to present in Toronto to classes of about 60 to 80 high school students at once, so that was incredible. What I wish I had known before graduating, I wish I had utilized the Indigenous Students Affairs Office a lot more than I did. The staff are amazing and supportive, and they sincerely care about you and your success. Most profs do want you to reach out. They do want you to go that extra mile to really grasp what they're giving you and the teachings they have to offer, not just the Indigenous Studies program, but across all programs. Attend the workshops, the teachings, the feasts. Don't be shy. This is why they host them. They want people to learn and enjoy themselves and to really understand our cultures. And those workshops and those teachings are where you'll meet some of the most incredible people who will teach you so much. Take care of yourself. Speak to your profs if you're overwhelmed. They'll be more than understanding. Create boundaries. Oftentimes these conversations taking place in class or in the world are emotionally exhausting, and it's okay to step back and not engage. If you don't do this, you'll burn yourself out. So what I learned going into the workplace, I've learned that it's okay to unplug sometimes. Because of the field I work in, it can be overwhelming. Sometimes that means turning my phone off early in the evening, not looking at the news for a couple days, anything like that. 2, take the initiative to do training sessions. I've seriously benefited from trainings like safe space training, sexual violence bystander training, applied suicide intervention training, things like that. And the last one is balance. So there's no clear definition of what balance is, and I can't tell you what that is, but find what balance is for you and make it work. Thank you.
All right, so yeah, same thing. She introduced us already, but my name is Lisa. So I graduated from my initial degree in about 2008 from psychology. So I started, a few years earlier, and then I decided after I was done that, I need to, pursue something else. So I continued on and I did a second degree. So I did 2 additional years here, and then it was later those professors that are like, oh, you're gonna do your master's with us, right? So I did. So I think graduating from that just a few years ago, where I received my master's, so in 2015. So I feel like I may be the outlier here after everyone speaks, but I feel like I was one of those people that I felt really ill-prepared coming into university, as well as once I was in the system, for pursuing things afterwards. So I received, a good education, all that kind of stuff, and I enjoyed my experiences here. But starting in psychology and then wanting to pursue something else, I was very naive to kind of how to go about that. I almost assumed that once I was in the system, you can just kind of go on, move on, do a master's, do whatever you want to do. Because in the field I was in, without really specializing, I was like, there's not much for jobs and career opportunities unless you really specialize. So for me, I felt just really underprepared, and even in my program, the program was so large that it wasn't close-knit where people really gave you feedback or anything like that. So I found a lot of the process was kind of self-discovery myself. And then, so for me, having gone down kind of a larger, windier path by taking a second degree and then doing a master's in a different field, ultimately it led me to a place where it's not that I didn't want to be, but I just didn't know what to do with where I was at, kind of thing, right? So even I found going back to high school for myself, I felt even ill-prepared kind of coming to university, because I remember them back in the day just saying, hey Lisa, what are you going to take? I was like, I don't know. They're like, well, you did really good in psychology. And I was like, perfect, okay. So it kind of felt like I drew it out of a hat just from the get-go, right? So ultimately now where I work, it's in a completely different field. So people often they're surprised by that when I tell them what I took in school, just because of where I currently work. So I'm a senior strength and conditioning coach at CrossFit Sudbury. I organize events, I do all that kind of stuff, right? Work with people on the daily, but it's not like I took phys ed. It's not like I took any of those, kinesiology, something that you would think, oh yeah, that's kind of how she got there, right? So, so I found for myself, even throughout my second degree, my master's, ultimately everything kind of kept drawing me back to health and wellness. So fitness, all that kind of stuff, right? So for me, it was more of a hobby that turned into a job, right? And then ultimately now kind of where I spend all my time. So really for me, what kind of prepared me was just ultimately finding a new hobby and interest. And then it kind of just fell into place for me, right? So I think a huge takeaway for me in terms of my education and the path I took was that, I'm not going to work with my degrees in their literal sense. But then I realized after, long, kind of hard road that that's okay. So it's not going to be a clear-cut path for most people, and, you'll find what you want to do. And for a lot of people, if I gave you any kind of advice, I'd say, if you know what you want to do, absolutely pursue it. If you don't know, kind of take the time, explore some opportunities and stuff like that, and then kind of see where your interests lie, right? Test the waters a little bit. Because I would have had no idea coming out of high school that I would land myself where I am now, right? So even after doing a master's in applied research, I'm not really interested in working in that field, and it's not that I'll never utilize it, but I don't really want to sit in a cubicle either doing somebody else's research in that sense, right? So for me, the only thing I think I knew even coming out of high school and university, and people would tell me, they're like, you need to work with people, you're really good at helping people. And I was like, okay, you don't really know what that means, right? But for me, even after, everything I've gone through and such, I kind of realized, even though my kind of educational path didn't bring me to ultimately where I think I would have been, it did in a sense also kind of bring me full circle, because even though it was like a hobby interest that turned into a career for me, I get to work with people every single day. So I help people on the daily with their health, wellness, fitness, kind of mental health in a different capacity without even realizing it, right? So, with my experiences, I realized I'm kind of helping people in the sense that, I thought I initially would have, right, by just helping others, but in a completely different capacity, right? So for myself, further down the road, maybe there's more schooling, more education, more courses, in my, foreseeable future. But yeah, no, definitely, like, I realize now just from other experiences, not educational ones, that, I realized where my passion was, where, my real interests were. And I don't think I would have known that regardless, like coming out of high school, out of university. I needed those actual work experiences and to develop that kind of thing to figure it out for myself, which is, a long, expensive road to discover, but, it can still be done, right? So I think for myself too, even if I were to go back and do things differently, I probably would. I don't regret anything, because I don't think education is ever a waste for anybody. It's just, I think I would go back, I would probably take a professional degree, something where you finish school and then you kind of have that title where you're like, oh, I'm a nurse, oh, I'm a teacher, oh, I'm, something kind of a little bit more clear cut, because, for a lot of people, if you take, specific degrees, it is harder to land, like, let's say, that dream job. Is it possible? Absolutely. Just sometimes takes a little bit more time, but, time is of the essence. So, depending on the person, what you want to do, you can definitely find yourself where you need to be. So I think even though for me, I never felt prepared, I think in the long run, it's kind of turned out for the better for me. Because, like I said, I did kind of realize where my interests lie because of all these kind of forks in the road, in a sense, right? So everything's always drawn me back into this one path. So it was one of those things that I was like, you know what, if everything keeps bringing me back here, then I might as well try it out if all else fails. I've got 3 degrees to fall back on, so, got a good solid base. But in the meantime, if anybody needs to find me, that's where I'll be. Thank you.
Okay, so previous, so my name is Jacinthe Urti. I'm from a little rural town called Wyerton, Ontario. You might have heard of it because of Wyerton Willie. He has told us it's an early spring. I'm not so sure. I think he's a liar, but I don't know. It's been mild up here. So I'm just a recent graduate. I graduated last year in May from my BA in music. That path was an extremely interesting path. I went into university with a jazz bass background, so I was a bassist in the jazz stream, and then about November of that year, I got a concussion trying to help out with an open mic from that association, the Laurentian University Music Association that I was part of at the time. So I had a speaker fall on me, and about 2 months later, I was in a car crash going down to Toronto to go see one of the symphonies. So there was a lot going on right off the bat in my first year. They say first year is hard. Well, yeah, it was hard. But because of it, I started to take a step back, and I realized, hey, you know what? Maybe jazz bass isn't really what I want to do. So still staying within the music program, I switched from jazz bass to vocals. Growing up, I had a lot of people say, oh, you know what, like, you're okay at singing. You're okay at singing. Oh, no, you're really good. And then there was a lot of mixed reviews, but I had a professor here, very, very supportive professor, shout out to Dr. LeMay, where he's like, you know what, you have a lot of potential. You should go into singing. So I was like, okay. So because of it, I am now a vocal major, so I focus in opera. But on top of all of that, I was part of the concurrent education program. So unlike the consecutive program where you do a complete undergraduate degree and then you do the teacher's college, which at this point in time, if you graduate or if you're part of the system after 2016, you are now part of this 2-year program if you're in the consecutive program. If you're in the concurrent program, such as myself, you are actually lucky when you come to Laurentian because you're only part of a 5-year degree. You only have to do the 1 year extra at the end for your teacher's college, so the pro year, which is what I'm currently in. But you do have to take a bit more courses during your undergrad. I luckily was part of the grandfather program, so I didn't have that extra stress. So talking about stress, I found during undergrad and even now, stress is such a common thread that, you know, we're always stressed. Oh, I don't have that good enough grade, or oh, you know what, like I'm getting really tight with money, or oh, you know, like I don't think I'm good enough compared to my peers. And so you kind of have to make that inner voice stop. And so easy ways are just find the things that you enjoy, whether that be sports, whether that be art, whether that be going for a walk around the block. You know, it doesn't have to be going to the gym. You know, just trying to find, maybe it's video games. It doesn't really matter. Just finding that thing that you can go to at the end of the day that's just different and taking a break. The other thing I realized too at the end of my undergrad was reading. I did not realize how much I stopped reading during my undergrad. I used to be a very avid reader. I loved to read. And then all of a sudden, at the end of my degree, I found myself going, wow, I don't want to touch a book ever again, which is not the case. Now I do read a bit more now that I have a bit more time, but you might find too that some hobbies might disappear just because your hobbies and your interests shift, and that's okay. Another thing I really wish I would have known during undergrad was where I would be led to. So with the concurrent program during undergrad, now it has changed a bit, and so like I said, I am part of the older program, but we didn't have a lot of guidance. We were told, okay, you go to a workshop on a Friday, and that's cool for your first year. And then your second year, you're like, okay, now we do the first placement. And you go and you help out in the community, which is awesome. It's great. You build rapport. And then in your third year, you're like, oh, by the way, now you're going into a classroom. You've never been into a classroom before unless you actually had previous experience. But here you go. Here you go. You get 20 kids, a teacher, and you get to be an EA without actually any qualifications yet. So then you go into the classroom, you're enjoying that, and then you go into your fourth year, and then they're like, oh, but by the way, you're going to go into that classroom again, and now you get even more responsibility. And then your pro year, they make you do it twice. So for the placement I just had, I was lucky enough to have been chosen to go to the Lakeview Public School in Chiging, in the Manitoulin, and it was a wonderful experience. So if there's any education people, I'm not sure if there are, but if there are, and you have that opportunity, take the risk. Get out there. Go to a school that is other than your community, because yes, it's important to build those rapports when you're in your own community, but going out and exploring different types of communities, different types of schooling, it's absolutely wonderful. And so yeah, so now I'm looking forward I have 2 more weeks left. I have March break, and I do my last placement, and I'm ready to go. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Ani, Tanse, Wache, Kwekwe, Sego, Kiraru. Hello. My name is Josh. I've already been introduced, but I would say I'm Treaty 9, mostly James Bay. I don't know, you've pretty much said it all. You've covered everything from mental health to everything you wish you'd known from your time here. And I will say that you have all spoken quite eloquently, and it was really interesting to hear you talk, because thinking about my academic journey through college, university, and coming upon this space, the University of Sudbury. I was only 19, 20 when I started coming to university, but I really didn't know what I wanted to do other than, I'm here for the law program. But then I started with Indigenous Studies, And then I started learning all these things about myself, about the history of where I'm from, the things, the shared history between Canada, First Nation communities, and what's not primarily taught in the education system. So it was more of a self-discovery time for me coming to university and attending the University of Sudbury. I credit a lot of my knowledge to this place, to my teachers, Will, Kevin, Brock, and Mike Henker. They're all great professors, and I really enjoyed their classes. A few things I wish I had known coming into university. There's things you can take advantage of, like the running classes and going to speak to an academic advisor. Those are things I didn't do. I don't regret it because I was forced to find my own way around and put myself out there and talk to people who normally I never would have spoken. But yeah, like I've said, you've said everything already. We've covered the topic, and I just want to share a bit about my work and what I do. So I work in the area of child welfare. I came here to university to study law and Indigenous studies, but now I'm in social work. Never really saw myself in the field, but path of least resistance, just kind of things kind of happen. So now, working in child welfare, I can see how the system works, the pros and cons, how policies work. And the interesting thing about my workplace is we focus a lot on culture. We're not just about child protection, apprehensions, foster care. We actually have ceremony at work. So this morning, I took most of the morning out just for a pipe ceremony, a water ceremony, to acknowledge the late Josephine Mandama, who recently passed. Now, for those of you who don't know or have never heard of Josephine, she is the water walker, the water protector. She started advocating for the lakes and the water. She started later in life. She found her calling. And when I think of Josephine, I've only met her in passing, but what she did and what she stood for, it wasn't necessarily a profession, something she got paid to do, but it was something that she found there was truth in it. Water is a human right. Water is part of who we are, and we're not separate from nature. But it's what she practiced and what she preaches. Water is a huge part of our lives, and we need to respect it. And I was thinking about why she was so passionate. She found truth to wait with. And when I think of it, in my work, am I really passionate about it? Do I find those things? Is it something I can speak true to and be a part of? So when I think about Josephine, I think about how I conduct myself in my place. Am I following those seven grandfather teachings? So those teachings I not only learned here, but in different parts of the University of Sudbury. So I've really enjoyed my time here. It's been greatly beneficial. And I'm proud to have met all these wonderful people. And I'll leave you with that.
All right, so now we're going to open up the floor if anyone has any questions. Is there any questions?
Personal journeys. What was the takeaway when you discovered what worked for you? What was the takeaway? As in, some of you talked a bit about it, but key, you struggled with stuff. What was it? The one thing that stands out that you take and you still use today that you found as a path or a solution to the struggles or the challenges you had?
Does anyone want to answer that?
So with a lot of that, the personal journeys and struggling with hardships, one thing that I took away personally was the benefits of mental health and the benefits of really just, as Mia said, kind of take yourself back, learning to say no. And it's, you don't think of it as being difficult, but it is, because when you are constantly asked by your professors, oh, like, here's an extra thing, or, oh, there's this extracurricular. I'm fully aware that you have all this extra stuff, but do you mind going to it? And you don't want to say no, but at the same time, sometimes it's better to say no and just give yourself the time and the patience to be kind to yourself. You're going through a really amazing part of your life that is a whole chapter that a lot of people don't get to experience, and so you are going through this, and there will be obstacles, there will be hurdles, but you will overcome them at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, just know that you're the one taking yourself to bed. You're the one who gets to go home and enjoy whatever you have at home. Another thing too that I found was because of the music, I like listening to music. Some people like to listen to music wherever they go. They listen to it on the bus. I try to do active listening. So active listening is when you have to close yourself off to your environment. And when you're listening to music, you pick out, in the beginning, just one instrument. So say it was like, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It could even be like a normal pop song by Katy Perry. It doesn't have to be fancy, but you go, okay, today I'm gonna listen to her lyrics. And that's all you focus on. And then the next time you listen to that song, you go, okay, well, I've already listened to the lyrics, I know that. I'm gonna listen to the backtrack, like I'm gonna listen to the bass. And so you focus on it. And so I find there's almost like this meditative state that you can get in where, especially with different types of music, like classical, which just sounds like super cliche. It's not. It really is a great thing to listen to, or jazz, or even rock. Like, you go, okay, today I'm going to listen to the drums. Today I'm going to listen to the bass. And you just kind of pick it apart. And I find that helped me a lot. It just got hard during my music degree because we had to do listening tests. So it was not only beneficial for my mental health, but it was also beneficial for my own skills. So,
I think the key takeaway is building community. Even if you're away from your community, I don't think I'd be where I am today without faculty and staff from the Indigenous Studies program, or on this campus in general, or the elders on campus. I don't think I would have grown into my own element and have the voice I have without that community and those people. So, yeah, I think community.
So, what was my takeaway from my time here? Keeping a schedule, stay organized, always update your calendar, create a vision board. And that way you can really map out or pick things that you're looking forward to, your goals. So just staying on top, being organized, having things laid out. But before leaving here, you really want to look at your skill set and looking at how it applies to your chosen career or your field that you're looking to go into. So building that skill set with research, taking the stats course, learning how to manage a database is exactly what you'll find if you decide to get into frontline work. I didn't take those things, I learned on the job, but if you start now, you'll save yourself a lot of headache.
So one of our already predetermined questions for you guys, what was the most difficult part of your academic journey and how did you overcome it? Stumped you. I think like talking about like your identity and who you are every day was a lot, and like walking into class and it would be like, okay, let's talk about residential schools. Like that was just getting like for 4 years, like it was kind of overwhelming and a lot. Okay, wait, what was the second question? How did I overcome it? I feel like I'm just repeating myself, but setting those boundaries, talking to those elders, getting the help that I needed, ceremony that I needed, and I was just lucky to have like all of that accessible and at my fingertips, really. So I think, yeah.
I think, like, for me, a little bit different. I think the biggest challenge for me was just definitely not knowing what I wanted to pursue with everything, right? And then even initially, like before I did my master's in the field I did, I had applied to different schools for a different program and I didn't get in. So even after the second degree, not getting in, it was a little frustrating, a little depressing because you always get that letter that says, you know, good luck with your future endeavors. And you're like, I just kind of ruined it, right? So I think for me, it was just, you know, kind of being patient and then kind of going back to that idea that, you know, it's okay. Like, you know, your path doesn't need to be clear cut. And for myself, it was just kind of exploring different options and then kind of just falling into everything that's kind of, that I've been doing, right? Which has kind of been a bit of a blessing. But at the same time, you know, it kind of builds character for you, builds a little bit more resilience because, you know, it's not just handed to you, right? So it's kind of figuring out things for yourself and, like I said, going back to building that character and kind of just building that confidence in yourself too, that like, you know, you can kind of do whatever you want to do, right? So even the field I'm working in, not that I don't have any education or supporting, you know, credentials for it, but I do, but I had to go back and, you know, take those and figure things out for myself, but, you know, it's not what I took in school, and I mean, I think I do a pretty good job at it in general, so, I mean, most things are possible, you just have to kind of persevere and challenge yourself a little bit.
Josh, do you want to go first? Because I'm still stumped.
We'll be on the spot here. So the question again, what was our biggest challenge and how do we overcome it? Like I said earlier, coming here, learning a lot about myself, my own community, the history, the shared history between Canadians and Indigenous folks. I'm Cree, I'm not Anishinaabe, so coming here it's a double the culture shock. But the University of Sudbury, when I started taking all the Indigenous Studies courses and starting to see, oh, this is what intergenerational trauma is, oh, this is colonialism is, oh, this is how racism works. Learning those new terms, and it started to unpack a lot of, I won't say traumas, but I wouldn't say I was traumatized, but you're learning in a sense about yourself, about your own community, and why Reserve has socioeconomic disparities, why there's no economy to begin with, and you know, learning about how the Indian Act prevents First Nations from moving forward. So the identity piece, like I said, is, you know, for Indigenous students coming to a place, again, the curriculum at the K to 12 level is not taught when we're talking about Indigenous studies, as far as diversity, Cree, Ojibwe. It's just not there. So coming here, this is a whole new, you know, swath of knowledge that you're obtaining, but it's also about you, and you're the subject in the classroom. So, you know, how to keep yourself sane, just listen to these things and hearing all the negative. Again, mental health is hugely important, but I think it's also a responsibility on the institutions to recognize that this learning can also be traumatic for students and learn how to create those safe spaces and, you know, refer them where need. So, you know, for me, learning about myself, my home community, and I'm very solutions based. So I think about the services that aren't there and how do we get them there. Yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, so I'm gonna go a different way. I'm not gonna quite go academics. I'm an only child, so coming to university was a complete shock. Having to share a room with someone when you've never even grown up with brothers or sisters was horrible, to put it quite frankly. But it made me grow as a person. I was very, very fortunate that I was able to stay here at, now I guess it's called the University of Febru Residence. It used to be UCMat. And I was very, very fortunate to have a wonderful support system within the residence, as well as just within the staff, within my peers. And because of it, I was able to get over it. So again, like Nia said, a lot of those communities, like your community can be anyone. It can be friends, it can be family, it can be people in your classroom, it can be your professors. The joy of being in a post-secondary institution is that, granted, as Lisa was in a larger department, both of them have been very, very small. So I was fortunate enough to have very caring professors. So just having that nice connection had really helped with a lot of the homesickness, a lot of just not knowing what to do with myself. Having to do laundry and then have 180 people yell at you when you don't get it out of the washing machine on time. I think we've all been there at some point. But yeah, so the challenge was that going away from home and just, taking that risk, leaving, and then being able to find some of the connections in Febru. And I've been here for 5 years, and I say that I'm pretty happy with all the people I've met. So yeah.
Is there any other questions from the audience? Okay, I'll move on to some of our other questions. So knowing what you know now, would you have done anything differently? I know some of you have already answered this, but would anyone go back and change how they started out, or?
I already touched on it. It's easier said than done, like to say that I would go back and completely change the path that I took, but I know now that if I were able to go even back to high school at the end when you're trying to decide what you're going to take, that I would want to put a little bit more thought put into it. Like, if you want to take this, what's the final outcome career-wise? Just to kind of give you a little bit more guidance and direction in terms of like what you'd like to do. Because I know, like, I graduated high school in 2003, so coming out of high school, like, there really wasn't any kind of career, I don't even know what they call those courses now, but it kind of like career studies or whatever, right? So like there was no exploring those options. So like I didn't even know a lot of the fields that were possible in terms of careers, right? So if I did go back, I would probably choose something different. But there's no way of saying that I would have known back then what my real interests were, because they've kind of evolved over the years just by doing different things, different sports, different athletic kind of things. And, it's easier said than done, like I said, because I feel like the path would have been a little bit more clear-cut in my head had I chosen something else, but I've also wouldn't have had the same experiences otherwise, right? So, I enjoyed my time here at Laurentian and U of S, but, it would have been nicer if, my years of education would have been a little bit shorter in that sense. So I know for myself, I would have liked to pick something that would have been a little bit more of like I said, professional designation. So when you're done, you're like, oh, I'm this. Right, and I know for me that little title would have kind of satisfied me a little bit more than going, I don't know, I have this degree, and this degree, I don't know what to do with it. So I would change it just a little bit.
So again, I kind of actually agree with Lisa. I don't really believe in regret. You make your choices because that's what your heart's going with at the time, and you grow. Like, that's a form of growing, is just saying, oh, okay, this is not the path I thought it was. So it's okay to change. And even if you are like a current student, don't be afraid to just change your degree. Like, your life, yes, it might take a bit longer, but I feel like we're so stuck on this track path in education where it's like, okay, you go from preschool, then you go to kindergarten, and then you graduate grade 8, and then you go to high school, and then you're like in and out from 9 to 12, because now they don't even really have grade 13 anymore, so I've heard. So, like that's not even an option anymore for some kids. So, coming in, you're a lot younger than a lot of people were coming in previously. So you have time. Don't feel rushed. You don't need to feel like your life is going to be over if you don't finish your degree in 4 years. It's okay. You are allowed to take your time. And you know what? Stuff happens. Life is weird and it throws curveballs at you, and just go with the flow. Like I said, I was a jazz bassist, and so I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to be a jazz player. Like that's really what I was doing because that's what I did in high school. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, no, that's not what I want at all. Unfortunately, I can't say that with education. I've kind of always known that I wanted to go into education, so I can't really go with that. But again, I don't regret any of the choices I ever make, even if they have a negative consequence. If we say it. Yeah.
Okay, so next question are, what are your next steps? Are you currently working to do new endeavors, and how are you going to achieve those? Does anyone have some new ambitions they'd like to share? So I'm trying to finish my master's thesis, hopefully to finish soon, in October, I'm hoping. I'd like to apply to a PhD program in the States. It's a PhD in higher education administration. So that's how people become presidents and vice presidents of universities. So I think that's my future endeavor, and we're just going to stick to that.
I don't know if I said, because I've been working in the field for a little bit, like I think I'm going to be taking like a nutrition course coming up. So it's not quite university level, but it's like a really prestigious course. So I'm hoping to take that. And I mean, at some point, just because of the field where I work, it's not like in the foreseeable future, but something at the back of my mind, just because where I work, we also have a physiotherapy, chiropractic clinic and stuff like that. So those are the kinds of things that have kind of piqued my interest over the years, like working with athletes and everything. So maybe somewhere down the road, venture into that field if it was possible. Like when you're a student, as long as I was, it's kind of hard to say, I need to go back and take another degree. It's a little crazy. But at some point, maybe if the opportunity kind of presents itself or, something comes up, I may take it, but I would like to continue to work in this field, but definitely kind of specialize a little bit more than, then I can work with people in also a different capacity, right?
So education is a never-ending pit of money. You just go and take all these courses. So I didn't actually know that in my undergrad. So that was actually something I would have liked to know before graduating, was that you're going to have to spend all kinds of time in all kinds of different courses. So I already have a contract to teach in England, North London, for September, but I'm also in the spring planning on taking an additional basic qualification, which changes your teaching division. So I currently can teach from grades 4 to 10, which is the JI division. And so with this extra basic qualification, I will be able to teach into the senior division, which is 11 and 12. And I'm planning on doing français, 6 supérieur. So the nice thing about Laurentian is that there's the two education departments. I'm with the English department, so we get to take FSL. And so there is a difference with Français and FSL. FSL is for French immersion in English schools. Français is for French schools, for French only. So there is a little bit of a discontinuity, but I'm hoping that it'll allow me to teach on both boards. So that's kind of the future endeavor before England.
Goals and ambitions for the future. I will come back and do a master's program at Laurentian. I've been putting it off for a while, but can't really seem to escape education. Can't be a forever student, but be a lifelong student. Really enjoying the field of child welfare. My current workplace, again, is It's not your typical 8 to 4. And the fact that we can have a pipe ceremony, we can have a water ceremony at work on traditional territory, it's nothing short of amazing compared to other places that I've worked where you just go in, you're silent off, and you send emails and phone calls all day, and there's not really, you kind of lose the enjoyment or the luster of it. But you can't do frontline work forever just because you learn out. So eventually I want to get my master's and look at policy, how it operates, how it affects our clients, how it affects our staff, and how to make those changes to better suit the needs of clients, children, families, etc. So yeah, those are my goals and ambitions.
All right, so running low on time, so I'll just have one final question for you guys today. To what do you attribute your success? Is there any standout people in your lives or any values that you hold very close to your heart that have helped you persevere over the years?
So I'd like to have a very big thank you for the University of Febru residence staff. Gonzales is the best res mom you can ever ask for, and she'll take pride in that title. What else? A lot of my professors, a lot of the faculty of music. Music is a very difficult program because it is dying in a lot of schools, like in elementary, secondary, just because the focus just isn't there anymore, which I personally find quite unfortunate due to just all the benefits that music can bring to people. But I would, just like to thank a lot of the faculty and staff here because they've helped me through a lot of the academic and also kind of the emotional roller coaster that is university. When I had my concussion first year, a lot of the faculty of music were right there. They came to the residence and they just were really looking out for my well-being. And I thought that was really special because you don't get to hear that very often about a lot of other universities. Big shout out to the Laurentian staff. Thank you for being you.
Just my family, just my number one supporters. My parents, I was a first generation person to go to post-secondary. My parents did not. So when I'd be stressing out at 2 a.m. over different theories, and they'd be like, I don't know what you're talking about. But they were still supportive and still tried to help me to the best of their abilities and their capacity. So I'm just really grateful for my family.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing. Like I don't want to say there wasn't one particular person or group of people, but I'm the same thing. I was first generation to go away to university, so obviously like my mom and stuff like that, my family was supportive and then friends. But I mean, definitely over my path, which seemed to be a little bit more of a windy road, I met a lot of people that, they inspired you kind of in different ways, but I wouldn't say there was one specific person or one specific moment that, kind of gave me that aha moment or anything. But I think it was just over the course of my experiences and stuff, getting to meet different people and, kind of seeing what they do kind of reflects on, the choices you make also. So I think just over the course of time, just meeting these people and kind of going, yeah, okay, maybe I'll try that. And then, leading to me where I ultimately am today.
There's a lot of people that I would thank, but there's just too many. Coming from a small town to a big city is a lot of culture shock. I wasn't an only child, and I didn't understand residence, so I didn't have to worry about it. But yeah, I met a lot of wonderful people here at the university within the greater city suburb. We still talk, we still do great things together, and it's hard to see myself leaving at times because I find I always come back here. I don't think it's the food, or but I just love the staff, the faculty, and the events they put on. It's just amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed my time, and there's always that pull, or something that draws you back here. I really like it.
All right, well, thank you, Mia, Lisa, Jean-Saint, and Josh, for being here and sharing your experiences and tips with us today. On behalf of the University of Sudbury, I'd like to present a small token of appreciation. And if anyone listening, if you're interested in learning more about our alumni opportunities, I encourage you to add your name and your contact information. There's a sign-up sheet just over on the table by the door. Just make sure that when you sign your name, it's legible, please and thank you. And I'd also like to thank the staff here at the University of Sudbury who helped put this event together. And thank you, well, specifically for the setup. And thank you again for taking the time to attend our discussion here today, those of you both present and online. So we've recorded this session and it will be posted on the website shortly. We look forward to seeing you again and stay tuned for upcoming events.